med school, like with any degree, any bachelor's degree, I mean, there just has to be a certain amount of classes that you have to have taken, like specific science classes like biochem, certain amount of bio, chem, organic chemistry, things of that nature. So you could major in anything, but just make sure you take those specific classes. Some people will also start med school having gotten a master's degree or a PhD and then going like to med school, and that can be either like for personal reasons because they had an interest in that. It could be because they didn't decide they wanted to go to med school until later, or sometimes people will do like masters of science programs if they didn't have the best undergrad GPA. It's a way to show that you can handle like rigorous science courses. And then to apply to med school, you have to have taken the MCAT. It's like a 7 or 8 hour test, I believe. There are 4 sections, like physics and chemistry, there's critical analysis, there's biology, and then there's a psychology section. The test is really hard, and it's a really big barrier for a lot of people getting into med school. A lot of med schools will have like a cutoff, so if you don't get above a certain score, they don't even look at your application, unfortunately. And the process is definitely becoming a little bit more holistic, so I think we're getting away from that, but it still is probably the biggest barrier to getting into med school, aside from maybe like how expensive it is to apply to med school. Getting into med school, you decide if you want to go MD or DO. Both have the exact same level of qualification. One isn't better or worse than the other. They just kind of have their emphasis on different values. MD takes like all your science courses, all the clinical rotations, things like that. DO does all of that, plus they take an osteopathic, like manipulative medicine class. Not all DOs actually use this in their practice once they graduate. It's just something that they learn and are tested on in medical school. And then aside from that, DOs just kind of take a more like holistic approach when it comes to looking at their patients and their applicants. And then you're in med school. Med school is typically 4 years, but people will take a 5th year for various reasons. It could be to get another degree, like a master's during med school. You could just take time off. You can take a research year if you're looking at doing something really competitive, but generally it's 4 years, and the typical setup of med school is that you do 2 years of didactics or preclinicals and then 2 years of clinical rotations. So your first 2 years are basically everything you would learn in like a biology-based degree, but more and faster. And then the last 2 years you're on clinical rotation, so you're doing like a month to 2 months in things like internal medicine, emergency medicine, surgery, pediatrics, psychology. While you're on those rotations, it's kind of like work because you are going like up to 40-ish, 50, 60 hours a week, depending what school you go to. I never have to work that much, but I haven't had surgery yet, so we'll see. And then you're also taking tests on those subjects as well. So you're basically going to work and studying, which is why a lot of people say that 3rd year can be really difficult. All of med school can be difficult. It kind of just depends what your personality is and what your strengths are, if preclinicals or clinicals are going to be the harder area for you. And then during med school, you take your STEP exams, or if you are a DO, you would take COMLEX exams. They're basically the same exact thing, but just with that manipulative medicine portion. But anyway, STEP exams are also really exhausting. It's kind of like, you know, you start at like your SAT for college, then you go to your MCAT, and then you get to your STEP exams. Like it just keeps getting harder and longer pretty much.